I was here when you got here?
Yeah, you sleep in the bedroom.
From director Olivia Wilde, Don't Worry Darling is the tale of a young couple, Alice and Jack, who live in a pristine 1950s company town, of which Alice slowly grows suspicious of. The strange going-ons around her are complemented by eye-catching designs and inventive music, and are brought to life through commendable performances. However, the way these elements are assembled leaves plenty to be desired amidst the film's pursuit of dimensionless literalism about women in American society. It sets a low bar to begin with before failing to clear it. When the story opens up, its characters seem content. Alice and Jack, played by Florence Pugh and Harry Styles, live in a newly built town of Victory, part of the mysterious Victory Project. The women have been told their husbands are developing progressive materials and nothing more. Everything is as it should be, and Alice sees no reason to complain. That is, until her neighbor Margaret begins acting strangely, referencing things she could not have seen as she clutches a red toy airplane in her chest. She's probably ill, the men say, and the women largely agree. Until one fine day, Alice watches a similar red plane, full size, fall from the sky just over the mountain. And yet both Jack and Frank, who runs the Victory Project, convince her that this is impossible, leading her to pull on loose threads she finds around her whenever she notices that things don't quite add up. The problem with this approach, however, is that rather than capturing its tale of paranoia through a paranoid lens, Don't Worry Darling is quick to confirm Alice's perspective, even if it doesn't quite explain the dreamlike events unfolding around her. In the process, it burdens Pugh with the onus of asking probing questions about Victory and the other women of the town, but it rarely embodies those questions or her feelings of coming undone. To compare Don't Worry Darling to the Stepford Wives would be to suggest that it has a satirical streak. It is, ironically, more of a Stepford wife itself. It's far too mechanical in its metaphors, which become all but metaphorical by the end, even though its eventual rug pulls offer zero by the way of meaning when it comes to the symbolism pervading Alice's visions. It amounts to nothing at all, and the secrets it reveals amount to even less, though they'll certainly remind you of about 8 different film and TV stories that executed similar concepts with more panache, several of them recently. Some of these similarities can be forgiven. The script was written before WandaVision aired, but there's a sizable overlap. But some of the imagery of people in jet black imaginary realms and accompanying dialogue about sinking feel all but directly evocative of Jordan Peele's Get Out. Intentional or otherwise, it's a bit unsavory, especially considering how Don't Worry Darling does, or rather doesn't, handle race with its distinctly colorblind version of its 1950s setting. Wilde has spoken about how she considers Frank, played by Chris Pine, a Jordan Peterson type. And while there is roundabout truth to this, Frank is only ever presented as an entity distinct from any such real-world comparison, save perhaps for charismatic cult leaders. Pine no doubt performs admirably, but he suffers as the rest of the cast does. He isn't afforded the opportunity to create dimensions. Pugh is bogged down by paranoia to the degree that she's left with no real personality, and Styles, while certainly measured and capable, barely exists outside of Jack's relationship to Alice. He's good to her, or so it seems, but when more layers begin to emerge, they don't stem from the kind of ugly human place that would benefit this kind of cinematic critique. Instead, they're a flip switch. On the plus side, Don't Worry Darling is pretty to look at, and in the moments when it feels like Pugh is on the run, the camera and editing may seldom aid in enhancing her perspective, but the music goes a long way. The dead space around her is at least filled with John Powell's innovative compositions, which use human breath to accentuate the mood. It sounds like the characters are drowning, even if the movie never manages to frame them this way and create the adequate thrills. In Don't Worry Darling, pretty designs, inventive music, and capable performances hide an empty cinematic critique. Olivia Wilde's modern Stepford Wives is too literal and insubstantial to say anything radical with its camera, let alone something mildly challenging. For more movie reviews, check out what we thought of Pinocchio and Bullet Train. And for everything else, stick with IGN.